What's up, everybody? It's your boy Vinyl Crusader. You watching EMP, and today I'm just going to discuss Jay-Z's first LP, Reasonable Doubt.
Put ice on the go. Chili with enough bail money to free a big Willie. High stakes, I got.
Reasonable Doubt, definitely one of my is my favorite album of Jay-Z's many albums that he released. To this day, it's my favorite, and I'm totally in love with this album. This album came out in 1996, and a lot of good hip hop albums came out that year. You know, you had the Fugees, The Score, which was an incredible album. You had Nas, It Was Written. You had Mobb Deep's Hell on Earth album. You had Tribe Called Quest, Beach Rhymes in Life. You had Outkast's second album, AT-Aliens, that hit the scene. So for me, I really thought that this album really got lost in the mix of that. Of all those albums, got pretty much lost in the sauce, and people really didn't know its worth. I mean, you still had Tupac was on the scene, you know, mashing it up, you know, with All Eyes on Me. You had the whole, you know, Biggie Tupac thing going on back then in 1996. So I thought, you know, that this album got lost, and people didn't appreciate or really knew about this album. I think people started to know about this album once Jay-Z became who Jay-Z is now. You know, I think people started to reach back, and even now, I don't really, you know, a lot of people don't consider this to be, you know, Jay-Z's best work. You know, a lot of people would say the Blueprint is the best work, and but you know, I disagree. So let's go into the album. I think this is Jay-Z. You know, heard about him in the late 80s. You know, he was down with jazz. You know, doing the Hawaiian Sophie thing or whatever. And heard of him in the mid 90s. He was with he did a couple cameos on a group from Brooklyn called Original Flavor. And you know, back then I think Jay-Z was just, his style of rapping was like fast, like, you know, like tongue twister type style out of Chicago. And I'm glad that he didn't. I think we're all glad that he didn't stick with that rap style, and that he changed it up. I think with this album, he finally decided on a style, decided on a cadence, and that worked for him, and it was brilliant. You know, him, Biggs, and Dame Dash, you know, they used their own money, you know, to put this project together, and it was off the charts. This album had, you know, DJ Clark Kent on there, production by DJ Clark Kent, Premier, you know, Sky, you know, and it. You know, I think Jay-Z just started, you know, to put his foot in the door with this album, you know. And the thing I loved about this album, that I still love about this album, is that this was like Jay-Z at the rawest form. Like, nobody was paying attention to this dude. Nobody saw the potential in this dude. Nobody saw the potential in this album, because it was just lost in what was going on in 1996 in hip hop. It was lost between the Biggie and Tupac beef, and I don't think people really sat down to really appreciate and listen to this album, to his delivery, to his wordplay, to the lyrics, and the production. You know, was off the charts. You know, from starting off with the little skit from, you know, Carlito's Way, you know, and I pretty much, you know, talking about, you know, I'm reloaded, you know, you guys want big time, you know, messing with Jay-Z, you're gonna feel, you know, he's gonna bring it big time, you know, here comes the pain type deal. And And it's exactly how, what was said. This is Jay-Z letting the world know that, hey, I'm coming. I'm coming to take over this rap game, and I'm coming basically to be everything that Jay-Z is now. He was basically, putting it out on this album. Now, the album's on some old Brooklyn shit, some old, drug dealing type shit, you know what I'm saying? Nothing that, that I can relate to, but still, I mean, the album was dope, and that's just what, Jay-Z was on, fresh out of the street. So that's the only thing that, he could rap about, was the drugs, the money, the women, and not really, I don't say not really showing off with it, but just, just telling the truth about it. I mean, the album, starts off with Hard Knock Life. The beat is crazy, with Mary J. Blige, and Jay-Z is just kicking facts, politics as usual, Brooklyn's finest, that's probably Brooklyn's finest. Out of all the duos that Jay-Z's ever done with anybody else, Brooklyn finest to me, it has to be the best duo he's ever done. Him and Biggie, they tried to replicate it on Biggie's Life After Death, but I Love the Dough. I didn't think the song was any good. I Love the Dough. I thought it was kind of corny. Could never compare to the Brooklyn finest with the sort of like the Run DMC type deal with the 1-2 back and forth rhyme. I thought it was excellent. I thought, at that time Biggie was going toe-to-toe. I'm sorry, Jay-Z was going toe-to-toe with Biggie, and in some instances, not much, but was kind of getting the upper hand a little bit on some of the verses on that song. Incredible, Dead Presidents. Using the Nas hook on there, Friend or Foe, produced by DJ Premier, The Evils, another joint produced by, DJ Premier, Bring It On, another DJ Premier joint. One thing that I loved about this album, and that I later was disappointed when Jay-Z really started to blow up, is like, what I loved was the fact that how him and Primo fit so well together. How it was just, the chemistry was unbelievable, and it was kind of disappointing to me as Jay-Z went on in his career. He started to use Primo less and less, to not using him at all, and that's one of the sad things that I take away from the Jay-Z then, and
these mean streets. None of my friends speak. We all trying to win, but then again.
So let me choose my words correctly. I'm a Jay-Z fan, but I'm not a die-hard Jay-Z fan. And I say that I'm not a die-hard Jay-Z fan is because I feel like for every good album, classic album that he put out, he released like the next 3 albums that he put out was just unbelievable, lackluster garbage. I mean, I think to the point that Jay-Z was so successful, I think he at the point that he felt that he can just put out anything and it would sell, which it did. So, and that's the biggest thing that, is my issue with Jay-Z. He released this classic album, and then after that, was In My Lifetime Volume 1, which I thought was a very horrible album. Maybe had like 3 cuts on there that I liked, but the rest, I just thought it was like an album that was rushed. People would tell you, I liked In My Lifetime Volume 2. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was a classic by any means. But I think my highlights for Jay-Z is obviously Reasonable Doubt. It's the Blueprint. It's the Black Album. and it's the American Gangster for me, personally, and then the rest of his albums, I think, to me, I thought they had like a couple hot joints on there, but nothing that I can put on play and just let it play all the way through. I did. For all the Jay-Z albums, other than the 4 I mentioned, I did a lot of skipping through those albums because I just wasn't feeling the music, on there. But this album, I think, I battled, with a cousin of mine that, the Blueprint is his joint, and we go back and forth on what was the best album, Reasonable Doubt or Blueprint. A lot of people love the Blueprint album. I love the Blueprint album. I thought that was after many years of Jay-Z, just his stuff that he was putting out, I just wasn't feeling it, and I thought the Blueprint was gonna be that same type of album when I heard it. But to my surprise, the album was out of this world. Kanye's coming out party on on the Blueprint. But back to Reasonable Doubt. I would think that I would like to think that this is Jay-Z's favorite album too. I read where when him and Dad was going through the Rockefeller breakup, Jay-Z offered to give the name Dame if he would just give him the masters to the Reasonable Doubt album, and that's all Jay-Z wanted. He would let Dad keep the Rockefeller name, but Dame wouldn't give him the masters, so to the album. So that tells me right there how important this Jay-Z's first album, this Reasonable Doubt, meant to him. His very first project, which I think he got like 4 mics in the Source back when the Source was popular, and I really thought that this album here was a 5 mic album. Like I said, I think it got lost in just the whole chaos of what was going on in 1996, and it's just I can say that Jay-Z was just not a popular rapper, hip hop artist, coming out, definitely, definitely, I don't think, maybe in the New York area, the album was anticipated, but I think outside of New York, Jay-Z was just another rapper. The album wasn't anticipated. I pretty much felt the same way. I heard Dead Presidents, like the beat, so I was like, well, let me pick it up and see what it's all about. And once I picked it up and I heard it, it blew my mind. And honestly, I can say I listen to Reasonable Doubt now as a 30-year-old. Now that I'm more into my, my adult years than I ever did when I was in my teenage years, when this album first came out. And I would admit that the album was good. I loved it, but once I heard it, I pretty much put it on the back burner because of so much other things, that was going on in hip hop. But my appreciation grew for this album is the fact that when Jay-Z, when this was released, everything up between this and the Blueprint was albums from Jay-Z that I just wasn't feeling all the way, and after release after release before the Blueprint, like I said before, I don't want to beat a dead horse, I just wasn't feeling those albums. So that made me go back and listen to Reasonable Doubt and really try to dissect the album, still, and appreciate it for what it was. And the album just continued to grow on me, to where, when I listen to it and I listen to other Jay-Z albums, I think, this is, to me, this is the top album. I mean, I can say maybe, Reasonable Doubt is 1 and Blueprint is 1A. It's just your preference on which Jay-Z you prefer, which production you prefer. But to me, it's not even really about the production with this one. The production on here is tight. It's unbelievable. But you can say that Jay-Z's Black Album, the Black Album, which is another one of my favorite Jay-Z albums, the production on that album may be the best production out of all of Jay-Z's work. It's on that Black Album. But the thing I loved about this album was that Jay-Z was at his rawest form. He wasn't new, but I guess he just, he was in the crowd, and the album felt like, he was pushing his way, trying to make his way to the front of the line, and giving up that tongue twister flow, really, nailed down a style that he really wanted to, that he liked, and that he was going to continue to use and rap with his whole career. And the album is just, there's nothing uplifting about this album. The production on here is dark, and it's just a straight up, it's just a straight up Brooklyn, New York City album. East Coast album, and I can see if, people from the South, people from the West Coast, Midwest don't like this album, because this album is just straight up New York. I mean, but after this album, Jay-Z started to kind of like adapt the style, of what was, I guess, the trends that was happening at that time, which he did a good job at. But to me, when I think about Jay-Z, when I listen to Jay-Z, even when I'm not listening to Reasonable Doubt, I think back to this album and just how rugged, how boom bap New York City this album was, and for me, a guy who is a fan of New York hip hop, that boom bap hip hop, listening to this just puts me in that happy place. That the fact that I can start at track 1 and I don't have to skip, and I can listen to this all the way through. So for all my Jay-Z fans out there, take up Reasonable Doubt out again, listen to it, and I don't know. I mean, if you're stuck on Jay-Z's later work other than Reasonable Doubt, I think if you wasn't a fan of Reasonable Doubt from the Jump Street, to put it on now and to listen to it, I mean, me personally, I don't think you wouldn't get the feel for it, you wouldn't get the appreciation for it. But listen to it anyway, listen to it anyway. And and see what it brings out of you. But this Reasonable Doubt album is that album for me when it comes to Jigga, Jehovah, Jay-Z. This is the album for me, my favorite. So this is Vinyl Crusader. You watching EMP? Thanks for tuning in.
Mannerisms of a young Bobby De Niro, spent Spanish wisdoms in a whip with De Niro. Crime organized like the Pharaoh. I cream, I diamond gleam, high post like Hakeem. Got a lot of things to drop, Brooklyn to Queens.